One evening in 1978, I got a call that I was being appointed to represent a Russian spy. I was the federal public defender for New Jersey at the time, and this was a first. In court that next morning, I was expecting someone from a John le Carré novel, but George Smiley wouldn't have given this guy the time of day. Ivan Rogalski, soft-spoken, polite, somewhat confused Russian emigre auto mechanic from Jackson Township. He had the plaintive look of a whipped puppy. And next thing I knew, that asshole John Goldstein, the United States attorney, was informing the court that he was seeking the death penalty and bail was denied. It took 5 minutes of legal research after court to determine that the federal death penalty statute was unconstitutional, but that was page 31 news. Goldstein got his page 1 headline. When I got to the Metropolitan Correction Center to spend my first alone time with Ivan, he insisted we talk in the corridor near the attorney visit room because the security TV was monitoring his thoughts through the metal fillings in his mouth. I knew that a response like, "That's bullshit," might undermine the attorney-client relationship. So I got the court to order a trip to the dentist to replace his metal fillings with plaster temporaries. I never told the court why he needed to go to the dentist. I just said, critical dental procedure needed. Over the course of the next weeks, I gained Ivan's confidence and learned his story. Ivan was a Soviet merchant sailor. He got caught stealing the captain's caviar, absolutely the truth, and was told that once they got back to the Soviet Union, he was going to Siberia. So he jumped ship in Barcelona and defected. Eventually, the U.S. gave him a visa, and he came to New Jersey, settling in the white Russian community of Jackson Township. You know the white Russians, right? The ones who lost the revolution and still venerate the Tsar. Ivan made a few bucks fixing cars. He learned English. One day, while reading a National Geographic magazine, he made an amazing discovery. He figured out where the Tsar's amber room was buried. Now, the Tsar's amber room had been a gift of the King of Prussia to Peter the Great, 1716. It was stolen by the Nazis from a royal palace outside of St. Petersburg. Shipped west, has never been recovered. Its disappearance is one of the world's great art mysteries. But now, Ivan knew where it was. He had to return to the Soviet Union to lead an expedition to uncover it. Raj, he called me Raj. Raj, I will be hero of Soviet Union. But there was one small problem. He was a defector. Siberia really did await him if he returned. But what if he had something of value to give to the Russians? During the Cold War, nothing was more valuable than secrets. Ivan decided that he would obtain some secrets and bring them to the Russians. Then he'll be welcome back. This, as you can see, was an excellent plan. But how to get secrets? Turns out that was no problem. At a cocktail party in Jackson Township, Ivan was introduced to an engineer named Nekrasov, a second-generation white Russian working for Bell Labs on the space station project. Ivan asked him if he had a security clearance. Certainly, said Nekrasov. Do you have any secrets? Ivan wanted to know. And how can I get some? Now, this line of inquiry raised a red flag, as it were. Nekrasov assumed that Ivan was a KGB agent. He called the FBI. On FBI instructions, Nekrasov gave Ivan a harmless public document about the space station. The FBI followed Ivan to the Soviet consulate in New York, where he presented the document to two consular officials, no doubt real KGB agents, but was immediately told to leave. "Don't bother us with such useless nonsense," they said. Ivan went back to Nekrasov and excoriated him for giving him a worthless document. The next time, the FBI had Nekrasov give Ivan a really secret document outside Nekrasov's apartment building. Suddenly, 15 FBI agents with guns drawn jumped out of the bushes and arrested Ivan. I got the phone call that night. Now, at this point, I need to interject some psychiatric lingo. For some people, schizophrenia remains latent or prodromal until some shock to the system triggers a psychotic break. The disease then becomes florid. That's what happened when 15 guys with guns jumped Ivan. His mildly delusional ideation suddenly hopped into the front seat and took over. Of course, the rigid thinking of Nekrasov, the FBI, and now the Department of Justice illustrates its own undiagnosed mental illness. But that's another story. Suffice it to say, I was caught in the middle. Once I filed a motion to declare Ivan incompetent to stand trial, the government brought in experts to examine Ivan. Now, government psychiatrists, sounds like a oxymoron. Anyway, government psychiatrists, they work for the Bureau of Prisons. These doctors can't make it in private practice. So they are bitter and not the brightest bulbs on the show. They deal every day with inmates faking mental illness to get drugs and better housing. They never met a real schizophrenic. And so, of course, these experts opined that Ivan was a KGB agent who had been trained to feign schizophrenia upon arrest. Absolutely. So, criminal defense attorneys like me hate competency hearings. Holding a client incompetent, that is, incapable of understanding the nature of the proceedings against him, and unable to cooperate fully with the attorney, just gets him sent to a mental hospital in a prison somewhere until he regains his competency. Then you go to trial. Usual defense strategy for a crazy client is to insist the client is competent, but then interject insanity as a defense. Ivan's case turned everything on its head. I wanted to get Ivan out of New Jersey into a setting where he could get treatment. Fortunately, I was aided in this effort by the New York psychiatric establishment. They agreed that Ivan was schizophrenic, but were most offended that brethren in the healing professions could assert that one could feign schizophrenia. My experts said that feigning schizophrenia is absolutely impossible. Any well-trained diagnostician could detect fakery. Now, I suspect that this position derives from the typical shrink sense of omnipotence, but it certainly helped in Ivan's case. But here's what sealed the deal. I violated every rule of criminal defense by putting Ivan on the witness stand at his own competency hearing without the slightest clue as to what he might say. So I began by asking easy questions. Where were you born? Where do you live? Then I went for the heart of the matter. Ivan, could you tell the court, please, what the Tsar's amber room is? Ivan began to get uncomfortable, but he answered, "It is a room of amber and precious stones stolen from the Tsar's palace in St. Petersburg, transported to Germany by the Nazis." Has it ever been found? No. Ivan really began to fidget now. Now, Ivan, without telling us exactly how you determined where the amber room is, do you in fact know the amber room's whereabouts? Ivan got more agitated, restless. He didn't want to answer. I prompted, Ivan, don't tell us where it is. Just tell us if you know. Almost in a whisper. Yes. At this point, the United States Attorney objected based on relevance and a few other objections, but the judge was already rolling his eyes and was clearly amused, so he let this continue. So, Ivan, without revealing the name of the magazine that might have assisted you in this discovery, is it true that you discovered the whereabouts of the Amber Room by reading a magazine? Objection. Overruled. Yes, but please don't make me tell. I assured him I wouldn't. Tell me about your experience when you were arrested. Oh, they were going to kill me, so many guns. When I met you at the Metropolitan Correction Center, did we speak in the corridor? Yes, we couldn't go in the room. Why not? They were reading my thoughts. How could they do that? The TV was sending my thoughts to them through the metal fillings in my teeth. Are they still doing that? At this point, Ivan relaxed, gave a huge smile. They can't do it anymore. I got my fillings taken out. I stopped and asked the court if the judge had any questions. He didn't. Either did the U.S. Attorney. So Ivan was sent to the federal prison in Springfield, Missouri, hospital wing, in order to regain his competency. Gradually, with the help of psychotropic medication and reduced anxiety, the schizophrenia receded. 6 months went by. Ivan was competent to stand trial. He was sent back to New Jersey. As luck would have it, there was a new U.S. attorney. I took the file and went to see him. He agreed that Ivan was apparently a nut job. He asked me what I thought we should do with him. I said, put him on probation for 6 months, let him go back to fixing cars, and if he manages to stay out of trouble, drop the case so he has no criminal record. He said, okay. It's called pretrial diversion. And thus, Ivan began his case facing the death penalty, but his crackerjack attorney was able to negotiate a plea bargain for pretrial diversion. 6 months later, the case was dropped. And if your car breaks down in Jackson Township, I can recommend a mechanic.